Hi, have you ever wanted your students to practice a short answer response to literature, or give you maybe a private report that you don't want everyone else to see? Those kinds of things where you would pass out lined paper and then you end up with 35 lined papers in your bag that you might get to in the next day or two or not. But that's kind of the struggle of being a teacher. Google Classroom has a feature that will really help with that. It'll make you paperless. It'll give your students an opportunity to respond to short questions with maybe a paragraph, and it gives you an easy typed out way to respond without creating Google Docs so that their Google Drive is filled with all these short response Google Docs. The answer is in Google Classroom posting a question. So what I'm going to show you in this video is how to use Google Classroom to post a question. We're going to start with the teacher view, and then I'm going to show you how it looks when a student responds to the question on a Chromebook or on an iPad. So to start, we're going to go down to that plus menu in the bottom corner, and we're going to create a question. And I'm just going to choose a simple question that's asking for a response about their reading. Okay, so I've got my answer or my question. What are you reading right now? What's your favorite thing about the book so far? Keep in mind, you can assign it to more than one class if you want to. You can assign it to specific students so you can differentiate. You can give it a due date, but if it's not due at a certain time, please don't give it a due date. If you're assigning due dates but you don't really care when it's turned in, the students are going to get a notification that it's late on their screen, and we don't want to desensitize our students to that late. We want it to really mean something. So if you don't have a due date, just leave that. And then I'm going to create a topic for this one, and I'm going to call it Lit Responses. I don't know, just for fun. Okay, this is a short answer, but I could make it a multiple choice. I haven't explored that very much because I really like the short answer. Now, I can attach resources. So if I wanted to include a rubric, or I wanted them to respond to an article that I had in my drive, if I wanted them to watch a video and type a response, think creatively of all the different ways you can use this. Okay, students can reply to each other. You could, or I'm going to toggle that off, students can edit their answers. I do want them to edit their answer. Okay, so the Google question is a useful one when maybe there's one answer. Maybe you're asking, what are the 4 regions of California? Maybe you have a right there question, but you want them to explain. You don't want them seeing each other's work. Or maybe you do. Maybe it's a math question and you want them to explain their thinking, and you want them to be able to see how their peers answered, and you even want them to see how you rubric scored each of the answers so they can really see, what does a 4 look like? So think of all the ways you can do this to really have an impact on your students. Again, you can schedule it for another time so it posts at the time of day you want it to. You can get these prepared ahead of time and save them as a draft, but I'm going to go ahead and ask my question. Now it looks a little different. From my view, this is the teacher side. I see the question. This add class comment is just like the announcement, how it's going to add the comments right here. I don't want students to respond here, but this is a good place if a student needs to say, do you mean my book that I'm reading at home, or do you mean the book that I'm reading last month? If they need a clarification question or something, they could ask it here, and then maybe one of their classmates could answer. When I click on done and not done, I'm going to see their responses. So I'm going to come in here. There are no responses here. This might be a new kind of screen than you've seen before. I'm going to use the back arrow to come back to our question. And I want us to look for a second at how it's going to look when a student responds. So here's my student window. Let me refresh. Okay, let me show the top. I'm using this refresh arrow to refresh. On an iPad, students would just touch on the screen and pull it down, and that refreshes the screen. Now, take a look at what I have. This would be what it would look like on a Chromebook or a PC. What are you reading right now? What's your favorite thing about the book so far? Notice, remember how I talked about the class comment? I want to type my answer right here. Okay, so I typed a quick answer. I'm going to submit. So I want you to see that as soon as I submit, it's marked as done. I can edit if I want to change my answer. Okay, okay? And when I come back, I don't see anyone else's answer. Even when I come into the question, I just see mine. Now, private comment would go just to the teacher. I'm just going to, this is a private comment, just so we can see what that does. Okay, that's a good place to have a conversation just with the teacher, that when I come back to the stream, no one can see that. All right, I'm going to show you what it looks like on an iPad. Okay, so here's an iPad response. It looks very similar. You can see the class comment on the bottom. I'm going to tap on the question, and it's going to open up a new screen. Now, notice I've got this spot to type my answer, and then I see submit. I could come down and there's my private comment. Okay, so I'm just going to submit, and we're going to see. Now, if I want to edit, exactly the same. I can edit there, or I can add the private comment. Let me add the private comment, and then I would paper airplane it. All right, so coming back here, you see the difference between the class comment. When I tap on the question to open it, my answer. Okay, so there's the iPad response. We've seen the student response. Okay, of course, as our students are writing, we want to remind them we're developing digital stamina. That means we can write more than a sentence. We can really complete our thoughts. This might be a good time for a question about citing evidence to go with your opinion. Okay, but we want to remind them, think, type your answer, reread it to make sure it's clear and concise, and then submit it. Now let's take a look at the teacher view. Okay, as a teacher, you want to go through obviously and give feedback. My 3 students have given their responses to the question. I'm going to click on done so I can see, and here are my 3 responses. Okay, now a couple things on this screen. First of all, I don't want this to be out of 100 points. I really only want it to be out of 4, but I could also make it ungraded. All right, update that, and I'm going to come in. Here's my test user 1. Okay, remember how I posted this is a private comment? Maybe that's a question. Here's where I could reply and have a whole dialogue. What if I wanted to add a comment here? Can you explain a little bit more about? Or I really like how you shared. Maybe I just want to say this is one of my favorite books too. So you can have a little conversation. Here's the beauty. I can't get to all of my students during their silent reading time, for example, to talk about their reading. However, if once a week they enter a question, I can be sitting at home, at wherever, and go through and reply, and I'm having a conversation with them that I might not otherwise be able to have. Okay, so I'm going to go through, I'm going to add a grade. I'm not really thinking this through. And then this one, there are a couple red flags here. First of all, not really hearing about a part of the story. Maybe they're not even reading the book, but they're having a hard time finding a book that they like. Okay, maybe that's a totally different conversation I want to have. Okay, I'm going to give that one a score. Now, I can add comments, of course. I need to return these to the students so they can see their score. All right, here's test user 1. If I refresh, I'm not seeing that it's scored or anything like that. All right, I don't see anything. I need to come back in as the teacher. I need to return these. Okay, now it might be I really want to spend more time responding to this one, so I just want to return these 2. Okay, you would also see down here the ones that are undone. So maybe adding a private comment of, hey, are you stuck? Are you having trouble? You've got a lot of power for feedback here, and feedback is often one of those teaching strategies that gets kind of missed because we collect things on paper and that takes longer. So I'm going to go ahead and return these. I can add a global comment. Maybe I want everybody, now that you've shared your ideas here, I want you to create a page in your writing notebook. Okay, maybe it's instructions about the next step. But I'm going to go ahead and return those. And let's come back and see what that looks like to the student. Now I can see that it's returned. I can see my score right here. If there were any comments, I would see them here. Okay, so when the student comes in, remember it didn't used to say return, but now it does. So you see how this feedback loop works. Okay, same thing on the iPad. Done. Remember, pull down and refresh, and it'll reload. I can see that it's returned. If there were any comments, I would tap. I can see my score. I could see any comments that were here, and there's the feedback. So that's all there is to using the question. All right, it's a really useful tool. It's paperless, it's quick and easy. Students can privately share their understanding, ask any questions with you. You can privately give feedback. I think if you use questions in classroom, you'll find that you're getting to know your students much faster, and they feel much more comfortable coming to you if they're having challenges. And you're able to celebrate their successes with them. So I would challenge you, use Google Classroom questions at least once or twice a week, related to content, related to how much time do you spend on your homework, how's your homework going, you get the idea. So use your Google questions, and between announcements and questions, you've got a really good opportunity to get some insight into your students and to get a better handle on their reading without needing the rolling cart to take all your work home. All right, have fun with Google Classroom. It has the potential to really change your classroom. Again, Flipgrid. Go over to Flipgrid. If you've been using Google Questions for a while, go over to Flipgrid and leave us a quick video. How have you been using it? Or maybe, here's one thing I'm thinking about trying. You can respond to videos. This is a great way to collaborate with other teachers. All right, have fun. Keep in touch.